I did consider doing one episode per video for part 2, and then I realized that that would mean I would have to do just one video for the tragic funeral episode for John. There are some women who could possibly find a way to make something funny out of a death like that, but I would rather leave that to the experts.
Oh, she passed away? Oh. All right.
Hello romance girlies, I'm LadyJenevia, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Now that I have published my overview review of season 4, I thought that we could go through some of the events of part 2 in a bit more detail. I don't want to talk about everything that happened because as far as episodic coverage of Bridgerton goes, I really only care about hanging out in the space to have fun with it, and if I were to go too far into the nitpicking of each and every one of the problems with the show, that would quickly take over the discussion, and I'm not interested in engaging with that. Maybe I will share a sentence or two of opinions on those aspects where I see fit as we make our way through these last few episodes, but otherwise, no. We're going where the creative spark and fun and banter and investment in story and characters are. Spoilers are fair game for season 4, the book, and all of the Bridgerton books now. Don't like it? Too bad.
That's a pretty horrible thing to say when her funeral's going on right now.
Too bad, too bad.
We read here. Support your local library, read books. The billionaires want to steal your data and profit off of your attention, and isn't it more fun to move against them with spite?
Huh?
I aspire to do something each and every day that the billionaires don't want me to do. Namely, read something. By the way, one of the next books I'm going to be reading is this book, Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's Open AI by Yerin Ha. That tech bro weirdo hates this book, so obviously I will be reading this gleefully. I've been on the library waitlist for this for months at this point. Even so, I didn't realize that this was going to be made available exactly when it did, but there are a dozen or so people on the waitlist behind me, so I will have to finish this in a timely manner. But at the moment, I'm still working on Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano. I had to pause reading that though because I needed to finish my Frankenstein reread, because I'm going to an IMAX press screening of The Bride.
Is that Sherry?
No. It's Lisa.
By the way, as far as Frankenstein goes, you should read the Norton Critical Edition. It's got the original 1818 version of the story, and footnotes and extra historical context. Overall, it's excellent. But now, on to episode 5. Benedict is awaiting Sophie's answer, but she has put him on ice. And I say this with all sincerity, make him grovel, make him sweat. And anyway, she doesn't have time to explain to you what the workers of the world have to deal with because she is busy having a reunion with our favorite bestie, Alfie. Alfie, sweetie, I am so sorry that they robbed you of having more screen time this season because what we got was nowhere near enough. Sophie! I'm obsessed with him. Trim the subplots down and give me another 15 minutes of airtime of Sophie and Alfie having banter. Don't you know that I'm here for characters having banter? And Alfie is rooting Sophie on to get with Benny Boo 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 Boo.
Cause you seem kind of tense from all the no boning. You sure you're good? You sure you don't miss it?
A Benedict and Will conversation. Remember back when I thought that the way forward for these two characters on the show was going to be that Benedict would regularly go visit Will at his gentleman's club, and then they ruined the storyline by making the Mondriches aristocrats like everyone else.
I saw that going differently in my mind.
Quick sidebar. Regardless of whether you are underwhelmed or simply whelmed by the Mondrich storyline, I highly recommend reading about Bill Richmond, which is the historical figure that Will Mondrich is based on. I recently read Richmond Unchained by Luke G. Williams on Hoopla through my library card, and it was a good book. Highly informative.
Not a joke, just a fact.
Sophie asks Violet for a letter of introduction so that she may go work elsewhere because why confront your man problems when you could simply leave? When Violet name drops intentionally incorrect trivia about Aylesbury to figure out that Sophie is lying about her background, oh, characters playing detective? Searching for clues to solve a mystery? Everyone stop. My show is on.
It makes no damn sense. Compels me, though.
Araminta is still going on and on about those missing shoe clips. Your diamond French clips. Diamond French. What sounds like an awfully suspect description to me. I highly doubt those types of natural resources would have directly come from France.
See, a big part of me really wants to enjoy this. Look at this. I'm in Paris. Paris. But then I think to myself, you bitches owe Haiti money. Pay up, bitch.
Benedict conveniently appears when Sophie is out with Eloise and Francesca, doing their best Mary-Kate and Ashley direct-to-video outfit coordination.
What do two all-American girls do in the City of Lights?
Shopping.
Ditch their chaperone.
I don't do shopping.
He's a geek.
Benedict looks so sad and apologetic, and he's yearning, she's yearning, but she's in denial. Finally, some good food.
I'll think about it.
Sophie ends up going through some of Benedict's art. It's loads of drawings of her as the lady in silver. Diva, it's time for you to own the spotlight. Be this man's muse. You are the spark, you are the vision, and you are eternal.
You actually think this is you, Nana?
It is me, dear. Wasn't I a dish?
When Sophie asks Benedict about this lady in silver and whether or not he has feelings for her, and he says that he did until he met Sophie, this is yet another example of how the approach to the adaptation of Benedict and Sophie's love story as the A-plot was excellent. In the book, one of the things that makes Benedict be a bit more hesitant about throwing himself into his love for Sophie is that he's worried that if the lady in silver were to reemerge, perhaps he would want to be with her. But here on the show, Benedict only has eyes for Sophie. The details of time passing are a bit murky, but presumably it's been a while since Benedict met Sophie as the lady in silver, and now he's spent far more time with Sophie as a housemaid than he ever did with her at the masquerade, so it's completely reasonable that he would give his undivided attention and affection to Sophie as Sophie. When I read the book the first time and reread it to do more discussions of the material during the far too long hiatus between seasons, there were always things that I didn't like about how Benedict was characterized in the book, and the vast majority of those issues were fixed in the adaptation. The only other thing I would have changed is, of course, have a revolution and force all of these aristocrats to have to actually work for a living. But, you know, I'm not the one in charge of this show, or else things would be unfolding very differently.
Death to the enemies of the people of the Republic. Hurrah! Justice is served.
The boys are gathering for cheese. Everyone stop. I have been summoned. My show is on.
Well, why, yes, I do. My favorite's Gouda.
I must say that now that I've read Gregory's book, by the way, I've got a video introducing that book, so we can keep an eye on the building blocks of turning him into the himbo of all himbos in this universe. Now when I see him pop up in a scene on the show, I'm just delighted that he's there. I don't want to watch a Gregory season anytime soon, because both he and Hyacinth look like babies to me, and they probably need to do a time jump at some point while making these next couple of seasons, because someone in my comments said that Hyacinth is supposed to still be a young teenager.
14?
What?
14. She's a child!
But the potential of their source material books is surprisingly high. There's a lot to work with there. Now, there are things I would change, of course, but it's not something we'll be going into detail on just yet. Neither one of them is the lead of season 5, so we will be going in order of whatever the show decides to do. Now that being said, Colin telling Gregory that he will need to be brave, though? How much do you think Colin is going to regret saying that once the two of them are hiding up in a tree together?
Whoops.
Whoops!
There is a party underway, and I'm sorry, I have to say this. What are we doing here? Sequins?
I say sequence dress. Sequence is more than one sequence.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Now, the color of the dress looks stunning on her, but anytime they show a close-up on any of the characters' dresses on this show and there are visible sequins, it makes me want to solve the problem in a very measured, reasonable way. Hyacinth has her pre-debut ball that's not really a ball. All of these annoying posh gatherings look the same to me, but anyway.
You're seriously just making it worse. And I want to go home.
You can't.
Gregory has his very first crush, a young lady named Rochelle. And the fact that the only thing that we see happen on screen here is that he sees her, they're in a group dance together, he tries and fails to have a proper conversation with her, and decides that he's in love. Hilarious! Himbo Gregory is confirmed. If you haven't read the books, you might think that this is of little consequence, what you just saw, because it's not eating up far too much screen time like all of the other subplots that I'm not talking about in this video.
You don't even exist to me!
But if you have read Gregory's book, that little exchange right there is evidentiary support of Gregory being built into the chaotic himbo of the book. Bring on the mess. I want to see the Shakespearean comedy that is his story.
Hey, Duke. Sebastian.
Olivia?
Olivia?
This group dance, though, one of the cutest things I've ever seen on this show. In any season. It's like when someone lets you meet a bunch of kittens at the same time and you want to scream at how precious they all are, but you can't do that because it would scare them. Don't scream at kittens.
Who needs relationships when kittens?
Hyacinth being momentarily swept up in a tall boy, and then he's nothing but disappointing. That's on track for her book, because by the time it's Hyacinth's turn to be the main Bridgerton in the spotlight, she has grown bored of the same old routine and people of the ton. All that excitement and novelty of debuting and entering the marriage mart, oh, it's gone. Here is where we see the beginnings of her on the show, learning that just because you love your brothers doesn't mean that men, broadly speaking, will live up to her idea of what they should be. And Eloise being jump scared when a man is there, and then she looks away and she looks back and even more men have appeared. She's just like me.
No. Just stop. Just give me a sec.
Violet staring at Benedict as he makes his way over to Sophie. That's one of my favorite recurring jokes on this show. It's when Violet knows when one of her children is in feelings with someone. She's been rewired from her love match with Edmund, you see. So she gets a mystical tingling in her brain that alerts her when it's happening yet again. Sophie asking, "Do you need something?" And the softness in Benedict's voice when he just says, "No, I found it." When I rewatched this episode to put together my thoughts for a video, I gasped out loud. These two can't help but be ridiculously romantic with each other. It's that extra little flair of drama of these two being apart, but all the while we know, as the audience, that they're going to get a happily ever after, but they don't know that yet. Ooh, it's such fun. It's a different facet of their relationship compared to when she's drawing boundaries earlier on in the episode of asking him why he thinks it's suitable to kiss her, and she gives this beautiful speech to stand up for herself, and he just listens, and his distress is so clearly rooted in the notion that he could be causing her any sort of upset when he adores her as much as he does. That's my emotional support capybara right there. Michaela and Francesca have a heart-to-heart where they're able to talk some things out, have more of an understanding with one another. I feel like some of the pacing for these two in their relationship feels slightly off, though. Now, this is not a criticism. This is not an anti-Michaela space. We're not doing that here. But if I use the book as a starting point, there was more of a sense of the two of them being really good friends and having been friends for years before it becomes romantic. If they wanted to have these two have an awkwardness that transforms into understanding and a newfound friendship, I would have preferred that they have that conversation earlier in this season, somewhere in part 1, so that we could have felt like they've been friends for much longer before Michaela runs away when she realizes that she has also caught feelings.
Lesbian pudding?
This is reason number 1,000,000 of why the half-and-half release model is a steaming pile of garbage. If you release these 4 episodes in one go, it's finished quickly in one go. If you had seen these two reach a new understanding and camaraderie in part 1, and then the separation happens in the season finale, we would have had an entire month of sitting with the knowledge that those two are friends now. If you make a new friend, you have 1 episode of them being cool with each other, and then John immediately dies at the end of that episode, and then Michaela runs away not too long after. It feels rushed, especially if, let's say, the conversation had happened in episode 2 of this season, just as a hypothetical. And then we get that longer passing of time where Benedict is looking all over the place for Sophie, And then the two of them are spending time together at my cottage. By the time we would get to the season finale, we would have experienced a much longer sense of Francesca and Michaela being really good friends with each other. And then Michaela running off in the season finale would be experienced differently. I know we're jumping ahead a bit because technically we are still talking about episode 5, but I wanted to make the point that as someone that is rooting for these two, I want them to be well set up for success. And you run the risk of making Michaela come across as flighty and non-committal on the show. And that's not romantic. If they had spent most of the season as friends and then Michaela ran away, it would be easier to understand that it's a trauma response to losing John and not wanting to betray him by falling in love with his widow, and that would align more with the vibe of the book. Anyway, back to the fun stuff. I really like that we were able to see more of John and Michaela's close familial bond, and their chemistry was spot on. It really felt like they were best familial friends. It felt true and inviting. It made us want to be part of their friendship group. Benedict and Hyacinth's dance, you cannot tell me that Benedict wasn't the favorite brother when these kids were all growing up. I know that he was the fun brother, the emotional labor brother, while Anthony was off doing all of his Viscount duties. It was Benedict doing all that Anthony could not. As for Benedict's flash of a temper towards Violet when she is trying to stop him from going after Sophie, I like this argument because of the dimensions it has. Now, before we talk about any of the specifics, I will make one thing clear. My 21st century perspective of this exchange is that I do not care whatsoever if two consenting adults who are not already committed to anyone else are hooking up with each other. And the notion of it being a scandal to be hooking up while unwed, or to be involved with someone who has to actually work for a living, those are antiquated ideals. That being said, this is a period piece, so we're being nuanced in engaging with the arguments being made here based on the rules of the world that these characters live in. Benedict is valid for telling Violet to mind her own business. If Benedict were to be found out for being involved with a maid, could that have ripple effects to his younger siblings who haven't made matches yet? Sure. That being said, Violet would probably also be judged as harshly, if not even more harshly, because she is a woman, and the high society that they live in is extremely sexist. What's that phrase about rocks and glass houses? And another detail to note, because I don't remember if I wrote it down in my outline, so I'm just gonna say it now. If we move ahead to episode 6, when ABC are at the Gentleman's Club, Anthony and Benedict are left alone with one another, and Anthony is telling Benedict yet again that he needs to not be involved with Sophie in that way. Anthony makes the point that it could have ripple effects, negative ones, towards their unmarried younger sisters. Anthony did not say siblings, he said sisters. So to me, that is a clear detail of the rules of the culture of the world that they live in, that it would more significantly negatively impact the ability of Eloise and Hyacinth to find decent matches than it would Gregory. And what is the difference there? Gregory is a son, and the other two are daughters. And again, me as a 21st century viewer, I say overthrow this entire thing because it's not doing anyone any favors. Even the rich parasites who benefit the most from how things are unequally distributed in this world of the show. But as far as this argument goes, and the journey of Benedict as the main Bridgerton of this particular season, I like that he's losing his temper here, because show Benedict usually doesn't lose his temper. Oftentimes, it's at most a snarky comeback. Usually to Anthony, because of course it would be to Anthony. But when the easygoing, funny one of the family is losing his temper, that conveys exactly how high these stakes are. That's how deeply, emotionally, romantically attached he is to Sophie. In a world with rules that try to forbid him from being with her, he now has to fight for her, fight for them to have a right to be with one another. And that's delicious. I would like second and third breakfast of that, please and thank you. But now we reach the moment we've all been waiting for.
Intimate? Is that how old people say sex?
The entire conversation that plays out before it finally happens, and all that has transpired in their relationship this season to lead up to this moment, everything has been immaculate. The fact that he wants to be with her and reassure her, but when she says to him, "You hurt me," he immediately steps back. I love him, and I love her, and I love them together. Every moment of every day shot me back to life. Just banger after banger he's dropping in this speech. If you're going to convince her, you had better convince her of what's in your heart. What does your heart tell you?
Huh?
And this is another important change from the book. Benedict makes it extremely clear on the show that he would not marry. He would not look twice at anyone else. There is no uncertainty in him making moves towards trying to be with Sophie, romantically and physically.
Come in. Take your pants off.
In the book, Benedict remains a lot more conflicted in his feelings towards Sophie, not just because of her lack of status, but because he's constantly worrying about whether or not the lady in silver might reappear, and what if he wants to be with her instead. But show Benedict has both eyes on the prize, and that prize is the woman he loves, who is whomst? Sophie Baek. Oh, and him just saying, "I love you," over and over again. Okay, Don Lockwood, I see you.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
One thing that I can't help but be amused by is that you can see Sophie's hair change during this scene, because once she gets close enough to Benedict, the updo looks different because it's no longer securely held, because her hair has to be free to fall loose once the engines start firing on all cylinders.
Are you guys having sexual intercourse?
I'm not going to give you a play-by-play of what happens next, because I'm not about to have YouTube try to silence me for going into overly salacious detail. But broadly speaking, I approve. No critiques, only compliments, excellent technique, and also, I love the communication. Keep that for all of the remaining seasons. Let them talk to one another about whatever it is they might need to talk about to ensure that everything goes the way that it should.
I know, it's intimidating to fall for a girl with a strong pelvic floor.
Now, on to episode 6. Benedict and Sophie waking up in bed together, and Benedict just wants to snuggle. I love that he's like that. I love that for Sophie. She's been deprived of affection for the vast majority of her life. She deserves to settle down with someone who wants to cuddle and snuggle all the time. But Sophie is the one who has to work for a living, and Benedict is determined to prove to her that love is in fact enough for them to be able to be together. He doesn't have a job, okay? So you might as well give him something useful to do.
She was upset because I just told her how I blew my inheritance. I bought a joke shop.
But poor Sophie now needs to track her cycle because, oh my god, what if she's pregnant? That would be her worst nightmare coming true. Not the motherhood thing, but the yet another illegitimate thing. Everyone gather around. It's time to cast spells so that Sophie doesn't become a mother until she's ready.
Look, I gotta go change my pad.
Kate and Anthony with a baby. This is what I want to see for these couples after their seasons. Happily in love, enjoying being with one another, not being stressed out by a tyrannical monarch forcing you to do labor that you don't want to do. Kate and Anthony looking beautiful and glowing as always. I've been quitting and removing myself from a lot of social media. No more Twitter, no more TikTok, because I rebuke that acquisition. But I do hope that these two are getting their influx of edits and fan art and all of those fun, festive things to celebrate their happy, married, new-to-parenthood life.
I'm going to have a baby. Right now.
John is hoping that Michaela and Francesca will make up with one another because they haven't told him yet that they're friends now. He's surprised, but pleasantly so. And I'm so annoyed by how much I like seeing this dynamic with the three of them because they didn't give us enough of it. This is a television series. You're meant to flesh things out more the way that you are able to do with all of that extra screen time. Need I remind you that it's less than an hour of runtime from this scene that John is going to die and they will be thrust into mourning. Just to reiterate, because some of you are second screening this video right now and will need the reminder, my primary criticism of this trio story is the pacing. It's not the events of the relationships that we see play out, but when we see which parts happen and how long or not long enough we are able to linger in certain periods of their relationships. The friendship needed to start sooner than episode 5 if John was going to die in episode 6. What are we doing here? Araminta brought her daughters over to the Bridgerton house, and guess what? Rosamund and Posy's whisper argument? One of the funniest things I have seen this entire season. We needed more of that. More of them, actually. Posy, my darling comedy diva, you deserved more airtime. This is Benoffi's season. And this trio is part of Sophie's family. They should have had more time than this. Posy talking about the biscuits, which is delicious. Oh, her line delivery is immaculate. I know I'm getting ahead of things here, but I will say it now anyway. And in all likelihood, we'll say it again when we do the video going through episodes 7 and 8. I am irked that Posy's Happily Ever After was just hastily thrown together at the end of the season. We deserve to watch her be the B-plot of season 5 so that she could get to show off more of her comedic skills while finding a love match. But Violet has correctly figured out that Araminta's household was where Sophie used to work. Sophie opens up about some of what happened. 7 years of working but not being paid a wage, taking the shoe clips with her when she was kicked out, but they turned out to be paste. And one of my favorite parts of this scene is Violet telling Sophie, "I believe you." Women do not hear that nearly enough. And I really like when Violet unofficially adopts her children's love matches too, because quite often they come from horrible family backgrounds. I will always refuse to accept that you had Penelope still keep Portia around in her life. Normalize cutting off cruel people, family or otherwise. No, but the evil white woman got a clunky redemption arc. I rebuke it. In my fantasy, Penelope was liberated from the toxicity of her family home and is happily in love with her husband and enjoying motherhood, free from the stress or worries from being threatened into doing forced labor. Remember when Simon was amazed when he came over for dinner that the Bridgertons actually like each other? He's been adopted. He comes around still. We just don't see it. It's happening off camera. Penelope is adopted into the family. Sophie is in the midst of being adopted. Philip has daddy issues in the book, so he will presumably need to be adopted. Michaela, well, we don't know if she's out to anyone in her family, but maybe she will need to be adopted. Gareth has a horrible father. He will be adopted. Yes, he has Lady Danbury as his grandmother, but why not have yet another loving woman to adopt you? And Lucy's childhood was not great. I don't care if she gets along with her brother. Her uncle is the worst. And her brother wasn't around much in her formative years. Really, Kate is the only one on the show with a loving family on both sides. Mary's parents suck, but those are more distant relations and they're estranged, so it doesn't really count. But all that to say, I like when Violet adopts the love interests into the family.
Thank you for being nice to me when no one else was.
Now that Anthony is back, we got a brief ABC reunion, which was a really fun thing to have. But I must say, for Anthony to claim that Gregory seems to have bested you 3 bumbling idiots, as you described yourselves, no, Anthony. Gregory is the bumbliest of the idiots, and that's why we like him. Don't go around claiming that Gregory is acting sensibly. Don't you ever slander his name like that. Gregory Chaos Personified Bridgerton will not be described as such. And Benedict has to tell Anthony off for him trying to stop Benedict from being involved with Sophie. I wouldn't say that I particularly like having to see these two argue with one another, but when you think about what the conflict is in the rules of this universe, there has to be a character or characters who externally communicate that this would prove to be an obstacle for the couple. Thus, the responsibility falls to Violet and Anthony. If it's not them telling Benedict what the stakes are, you would have to escalate the drama to where Benedict and Sophie are indeed exposed to the ton at large and have to deal with the fallout of that. And I would not want to watch Sophie suffer such agony, so this little family tiff will have to do. And Colin returning after the argument just to be funny and say, "What did I miss?" That's very book Colin energy, but it's specifically book Colin when he's in other people's love stories as opposed to being in his own. Penelope, you should have thrown that invitation right back in Cressida's face. You are not obligated to be nice to her or do her any favors. They never let Penelope free from these horrible people, do they? Why is she not just hanging out with her husband or her baby, or any number of the Bridgertons that are now her family by marriage. Free Penelope O'Featherington.
So I don't know what else to say. Should I sing a rebel song?
This scene of Benedict and Sophie with the candles and the warm lighting, and he's proposing that they should have a life together at my cottage. I would love this scene infinitely more if they didn't have her in a wig. What is wrong with Yerin's hair? It was more than good enough when those two got fully intimate for the first time. Every time I try to rewatch this scene, I end up getting distracted by the wig line. I should be enjoying his romantic suggestions of how they could build a life together. He's coming out to her, and she's accepting him. And what am I doing? I'm staring at her hairline. You know, if you stopped overcrowding this ensemble, you could redirect some of that budget to wigs that don't look weird. But finally, we reach the point of her telling him about her illegitimate origins, and the look on his face, the sadness for all that she's been through, and the understanding where all of her behavior makes sense to him now. He completely understands why she's so skeptical and concerned about whether he will follow through on these grand declarations he's making. It's not about him. It's about her and everything she has suffered through. We as the audience, we know that Benedict is a good person with a kind heart.
Does having a kind heart make you a good nurse?
But Sophie has not known him for multiple seasons of direct-to-streaming viewing. She's valid to be wary and cautious because she doesn't know she's a fictional character on a television series that guarantees a happily ever after for its central couple each season. And speaking of that, Kate's suggesting that perhaps the women could be forgiving to Cressida. I guarantee you she wouldn't be suggesting that if that woman had pulled any stunts against Edwina the way that she did towards Penelope for more than one season. And I don't appreciate them using Kate's character this way to try to condescend to the audience, asking us to be nice to the cruel white women they insist on keeping on this show, even though they burned the bridge with Simon and we've never seen him back. They've never brought Kate's family back either. Is Cressida going and getting herself arrested for breaking into a weapons factory to commit sabotage to try to save lives from colonial violence? No? Then there's nothing further to discuss here. My stance remains unchanged.
And these guys look at you like you're a piece of shit this shoe, yeah? That's what I'm saying to you. The French. Viva Palestine, up the IRA.
All right.
I do love that we have so many of the Bridgerton women involved in this scene, but I wish that they had timed things differently so that Sophie could have been invited to talk with the women. In the book, Sophie got to join in on lady tea time on a regular basis that consisted of her, Violet, Eloise, Francesca, and Hyacinth, since Francesca wasn't married yet in Benedict's book. They were able to chat more, and we finally have Kate here because the audience was loud and demanding enough to ensure that she was brought back to the show when her name wasn't initially announced for season 4. I remember that. I didn't forget. You couldn't let Kathani talk to one Asian woman this season? Okay.
It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
No, it literally is the end of the world.
Eloise figuring out that the key to reconciling with Hyacinth is mischief and scheming. Finally, this is what I'm here to see. And I love that Sophie gets to partake in the mischief and the fact that it's an inverse of how the season began. Instead of Sophie disguising herself as a lady to sneak into a ball, it's now Hyacinth disguising herself as a maid to sneak into a ball. See, this is why you need a whole array of friends with different experiences and areas of expertise. Look at all this extra knowledge you can acquire.
I need your advice, man. I got lady troubles.
I'm here for you, bro. Got a lifetime of knowledge.
Penelope having this cute moment of reflecting, literally in the mirror, on how far she's come as a person, and then her husband comes in and they're just cute together and happy in love. That's what I wanted to see. Every time they force me to watch Penelope being miserable post-happily ever after, you are violating the social contract, and thus I will fast forward. I've seen season 4 once, and am no longer obliged to rewatch any of the parts I object to.
Why am I in the mood?
Shh, it's okay, it's okay.
The Powerpuff Girls have arrived at this ugly, tacky ball, and the fact that it took them this long to have these two characters talking trash in another language Why did you only do this once? Now, I don't speak Cantonese, but this is definitely a thing. All my Asian girlies, we do this, right? Switch to English if you don't want the non-English speakers to know what you're talking about, and then you switch to whichever Asian language you speak when you're around outsiders. Hyacinth being fine with not getting to participate in the ball, but she just wants to spectate, be nosy. Yes, I love that for her. And she's got Eloise with her, which means that none of these nasty men can try to approach her and pull any stunts. Back away from the teenage girl.
She's a child!
John and Francesca being granted one more night to look at the moon together, echoing the night they met. How dare you, show? How dare you? I should have known right there they were twisting the knife, but wait a bit longer. We will get to that.
Oh my god.
Penelope finally gets to retire, and good grief, this should have happened last season when it was, you know, her season. But finally, it's done. I cannot believe they dragged out her suffering like that. I want to see Penelope free. Benedict catches Hyacinth at the ball with Eloise. Did anyone else notice how Hyacinth was asking about, well, who will write about Hyacinth's debut and about her inevitably being the diamond of the season? And Benedict says that Hyacinth's secret is safe? So Hyacinth is the new Lady Whistledown, right? Penelope must be set free from doing that job. I've made that very clear. She has outgrown it, and she did not continue to do that after hers and Colin's book. But the show needs to keep Julie Andrews on as a narrator because we collectively have a Pavlovian response to hearing her voice. It can't be a person of the working class, though, remember? Eloise already went on her investigation in a previous season, and she was mocked when she questioned a member of the working class if they were the one to do it. Because when exactly would they have time for such a thing? With what time, what resources, and what connections? Obviously, Hyacinth should do it. She's got the cheek, the nerve, the audacity, and the gumption to tackle this new job. And she's already started seeing the cracks in the glossy veneer of the ton, so go on and pick up the quill, Hyacinth.
I changed my mind. I'd pick the dangerous one, because I'm not afraid of a challenge.
When Benedict returns home, he gets into another argument with Antony, and I must say, it's very rude of Antony to have his forearms exposed like that. How are the viewers meant to hear a word you're saying when you're flashing all that skin? What nonsense are you going on about now, threatening to cut Benedict off? Ladies, I dare say we could find something to cut off if you're going to go around trying to block Sophie's happiness like that.
Bring it on, sisters!
Sophie burning the drawing where Benedict had rechristened his country home as Our Cottage. Will just tear my heart into shreds, why don't you?
Girls, would you tell our nurtured complaints?
Francesca and her first and second spouses have just completed a puzzle together. And when I tell you that on my first watch of this scene, when John said he was going to take a nap, and more specifically that he had a small headache, I went, what? Already? It felt really abrupt for me as a viewer because, again, Francesca and Michaela had only just become friends what felt like all of 5 seconds ago, and now John's dead. The trio is ticking the boxes of key things about their respective relationship timelines with one another, but the rhythm feels a couple of beats off. I do hope that Eloise is season 5 and Francesca season 6, because the idea of Eloise having yet another season on the bench is appalling to me. But also because, as we're going to learn in the last 2 episodes, Francesca is pregnant. In the book, Francesca struggles with fertility, so in my analysis of the various moving parts of different characters and their storylines, it would make sense to have Francesca take it as easy as possible. Don't give her too much extra stress while she's going through her pregnancy and giving birth, recovering from both that pregnancy and the childbirth. And also just deal with the new emotions that are going to come from that. Let her find her footing as a mother, and then you bring back Michaela and have all of the chaos and romance and passion of that love story ensue. And I will be seated, I will be watching, I will be talking about all of it. I also wonder if they'll do a time jump somewhere in the mix of these next 4 love stories, because Michael had run away for years after John's death in the book before making his return, so I don't see why we can't have Michaela on the show be away for a longer period of time before making her dramatic return. Just do a montage of sorts. Or maybe Philip and Eloise have been pen pals for much longer than they were in the book. I don't know. The people who stalk the interviews drop the information, if there's any available, about what they've said about the show's timeline, because it feels a bit weird at the moment. I want Gregory and Hyacinth's actors to be able to be 20-something-year-olds playing 20-something-year-old versions of their characters. And the timing doesn't line up if these seasons are supposed to be 1 year apart with each other in the show's timeline. Those two would still be babies by the time we got to seasons 7 and 8.
You can't make love to a salad.
But back to the main event. Sophie ends things with Benedict, making it very clear to him that she sees how close he is with his family, and she would never want to be the cause of a rift among them. He's devastated, but also understanding, and he's offering her other options. He's giving her choices, or at least what counts as a choice when you're living under a corrupt classist society of England. But I actually enjoyed watching this drama because it's all external factors tearing these two apart. There is never at any point a question of the depth of their love for one another. They're just not quite clever enough to have figured out how to finesse the situation in their favor. They will figure it out though, and I know that they will, but you have to stir the pot a bit because it's only episode 6, not episode 8. We haven't even gone to the jail yet. I likely won't be able to go through episodes 7 and 8 until a bit later this month because I've got a lot of other things coming up, films to review that I'm looking forward to talking about. But I am glad that I paired these episodes up because if I was having to worry about finishing 3 more videos about season 4 instead of 1, it would have been highly disruptive to my workflow, and I simply cannot have that. And this way, by the time we circle back to finish the last 2 episodes, we will have a much shorter wait time for the official announcement regarding the main Bridgerton for season 5.
It's been 84 years